Hello everybody! Welcome to another video. I am the Gold Man, and today I will be ranking the Star Wars movies. But before I begin, I'd just like to say that this ranking is a subjective ranking. I may have movies on this list that are pretty low, that I think are better than movies that are higher than it. But the reason I have these rankings are just because I like certain movies more than others for personal reasons. So a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and that's great. I just hope you can respect my rankings. Please leave your rankings in the comments so I can compare rankings and we can have a nice discussion about it. Okay, so here are my rankings. At number 11, we have Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace. So why is this movie at the bottom of my list? Well, unfortunately, it's really the only Star Wars movie I find close to nothing enjoyable about it. And if you get to know me, then you'll learn that the most important things to me in a movie are the characters and how well I can empathize with them. And I say this without joking, but the two characters I like the most in this movie are Anakin and Jar Jar. These are the only characters that you understand their personalities and their motivations. Now, you can argue that they are annoying, but I honestly can look past that. Qui-Gon, while having the largest role, never really shows any urgency or personal motivations other than the prophecy. Obi-Wan is great, but he's barely in the movie. Padme is just a character that I've never been able to connect with. And I will never understand how people say they love Darth Maul. And remember, we're just talking about the movie, we are not talking about the Clone Wars, where he's fantastic. The lightsaber fight at the end doesn't really wow me anymore because I've seen it so many times, and none of these characters have any personal motivations in this fight. And when people say Canto Bight is the worst sequence in Star Wars, I ask them if they've seen the Coruscant scene in The Phantom Menace. This is easily the most boring scene in all of Star Wars for me. I will never understand how people don't think this is the worst scene in all of Star Wars. Now, those are just a few, but my main reasons why I have The Phantom Menace at the bottom of my list. At number 10, we have Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And I understand that this movie is many people's favorite Disney Star Wars movie, and I'm so glad that so many people love it, but I just don't understand why. Yes, the Battle of Scarif is fantastic, but I have the same criticism here that I do about The Phantom Menace. I find none of these characters interesting. I have even asked some of my friends in real life who say Rogue One is one of their favorite Star Wars movies to name at least 3 members of the Rogue One team, and they can never do it. They can only name Jin and maybe K2SO. They don't even know Cassian, who's getting his own show. The pacing in the beginning is quite poor, and it doesn't really pick up until they get to Edu. I do, however, really like the concept of this movie and how the characters had to sacrifice their lives to get the plans. Since the family aspect of Star Wars is one that always gets to me personally, I really do like the relationship that Jin has with her father, and especially the scene where Jin watches the hologram. And as cool as the Vader hallway scene is, no 30 seconds of a movie can redeem an entire 2 hours of what I consider to be boring characters. At number 9, we have Solo, a Star Wars story. And for me, this movie is pretty much the complete opposite of Rogue One. There are a few characters that I actually quite like. I like Alden as Han Solo, and I think it's always great to see Chewbacca and Lando. Qi'ra is fine, I'm intrigued by her character, but that's pretty much it. And besides a few compliments I can give for the characters, I can't really say anything else positive about this movie. And unlike Rogue One, I actually quite hate the whole concept of this movie. We pretty much learn the whole backstory of Han Solo in 2 hours, and it feels out of place, to be honest. And while I do have some fun with the action, that's all I can say about it. It's fun. Nothing is memorable about this movie, and there are no single scenes that really hit me on an emotional level. I just find it really hard to get into a movie that I don't really take anything away from it, and that's why it's so hard for me to like this movie. At number 8, we have Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones. Now, I understand this is many people's least favorite Star Wars movie. Anakin and Padme's relationship is just mostly cringed and forced dialogue, and there are no other memorable characters. Obi-Wan doesn't really do anything for me, the Battle of Geonosis is probably my least favorite battle, and the lightsaber fight at the end is probably the worst fight in the whole series. Another thing that you'll learn from me is that I'd rather have a movie that has many highs and many lows, as opposed to a movie that's just constantly mediocre. And I'll be honest, I really like all of the scenes with Anakin and Padme on Tatooine. I think they actually have some really sweet scenes together, and I think Anakin finding his mother is one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars. Even with the infamous "I killed them all" scene, I actually quite enjoy it. I can really empathize with what Anakin is going through, and if it wasn't for this Tatooine portion of the movie, then it would easily be last. But this 10 to 20 minute portion of the movie is some of my favorite Star Wars, and that's why it's as high as number 8. At number 7, we have Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, I do want to say I really like this movie. From here on, these are the movies I pretty much like. But the reason I like this movie so much has a lot to do with the Clone Wars. But just analyzing this movie, I see almost all the same problems in this movie that I do with the other two prequels. Without the Clone Wars, I still don't empathize with any of the characters. I actually do like the opening scene quite a bit. It's the only time we really see Anakin and Obi-Wan being friends in the films. But after another happy landing, the movie just drags for me. I find Obi-Wan and Utapau to be one of the most useless scenes in all of Star Wars. Anakin's fall, even after the Clone Wars, still just doesn't work for me. But besides that, I actually really like Anakin in this movie. His scenes with Palpatine, besides the actual scene where he turns to the dark side, are really well done. The Darth Plagueis scene is always a classic, and I'd actually say the best scene in all of the prequels, and maybe one of my top 5 scenes in all of Star Wars, is the one where Anakin and Padme are just staring at each other across Coruscant. A big problem I have with the prequels is that all the characters are always telling each other how they feel, and they're never really showing their emotions. This scene without a single line of dialogue conveys to the audience exactly what Anakin is thinking, and I think it really works. The Mustafar fight is fine, but again, if it wasn't for the Clone Wars, I don't really think I would enjoy it all that much. So while Revenge of the Sith is actually a movie I really quite like, I just don't think it's particularly a good movie. At number 6 is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And this movie is very similar to Revenge of the Sith for me, in that it's a movie that I really like, but I don't think is a particularly good movie. Any scene with Rey or Kylo I really love because I just really like those two characters. I really empathize a lot with Rey in this movie, and I'm really surprised that other people don't. In the other two sequels, I think Kylo is a standout character, but in this, I'd actually say Rey is. I don't hate the idea of Rey Palpatine, I just would have preferred she stay nobody. Kylo Ren continues to be one of the best characters in all of Star Wars, and I love his redemption scene with Han so much. And while Ben Solo doesn't have any lines at the end of the movie, I actually really like this a lot. But besides that, there isn't much else I really like about this movie. If you saw my video about Finn, you would know that I really don't like the way he was treated in this film. I really don't like the idea of Palpatine coming back, and the fact that they didn't even explain it really makes it so much worse. And I can officially say that the Death Star Destroyers in this movie is my least favorite concept in all of Star Wars. I just think it is the most creatively bankrupt idea that someone could have possibly thought of for this movie. But besides those complaints, I just really have a lot of fun with this movie, and again, it's mostly because of Rey and Kylo. At number 5, we have Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Now, this movie, I actually have pretty much nothing to say. It's a perfect movie and has no flaws, but for reasons you'll see in a bit, they're just other movies I like more for personal reasons. I can go into why this movie is so great, but it's been done so many times that I don't feel it's necessary. I love all the characters, I love all the plot, I love everything, but these next few movies, I just feel a more personal attachment to. At number 4, we have Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, this movie I also have very few negatives to say. I love almost all the characters, I instantly fell in love with Rey and Finn, Kylo became one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, and I love how Han Solo is in this movie. Yeah, it's similar to New Hope, but that's really all I can say that's bad about this movie. Starkiller Base is my least favorite aspect, just like the Death Star Destroyers and the Rise of Skywalker. I think it's a creatively bankrupt idea, but it's not as bad. My enjoyment of this movie is pretty much like a flat line. I really like almost everything in this movie, but there isn't anything there that makes it particularly bad, but also there isn't anything that puts it over the top as a next level in terms of what I love. And that's why I have it at number 4. At number 3, we have Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, for this movie, while it being number 3 on my list, I actually have a decent amount of negatives. I'm not a big fan of the Jabba's Palace scene all that much. Every time I watch it, it just doesn't really make that much sense to me. It's a fun scene, but nothing great. The Endor stuff is fine. I don't really like the Ewoks, but the space battle is great. But the reason why I love this movie so much is because of the dynamic between Luke and Vader. The throne room scene is by far my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, and whenever I see Vader redeem himself, I actually get quite emotional, even though I've seen it so many times. This is the movie that made Luke Skywalker become my favorite character in all of Star Wars, and because of that is why I have this movie so high on my list. At number 2, we have Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Now, here come the dislikes, but I just love this movie so much. Any scene that isn't Canto Bight, I really love. The dynamic between Rey and Kylo, I think, is one of the most interesting concepts in all of Star Wars, and it's the best part of the film. Also, I can't get over how beautiful this movie is. I feel like there are dozens of times that I could take a screenshot of this movie and print it out as an image. Another hot take, but I really like the Holdo maneuver scene. I get that it's a plot hole, but I just don't care. I think the way all the storylines come together and how it's shot is so beautiful. But if you've watched my previous videos, then you know the reason why I love this movie so much is because of Luke. I think showing such vulnerability in a hero and having this message that you can fail but still be great expressed through Luke hit me on such an emotional level. If you really want to see why I love Luke so much, I've made 2 videos about it, so go check those out. But because of Luke's arc and the dynamic between Rey and Kylo, it is my second favorite Star Wars movie. And last but not least, at number 1, we have Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I also don't really have much to say about this movie because everything has been said about it. For me, there are only a few movies that I would put in the greatest of all time category when it comes to movies. I'd put Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, The Dark Knight, hot take, but WALL-E, and I would put this movie as well. The way it pushes the characters forward is just perfect. The pacing is great. Honestly, everything about this movie is just fantastic. And that is why this is my favorite Star Wars movie. And